Swollen knees. Here are the 8 foods I added to my diet, and the results were beyond what I expected. A few months ago, I started noticing something. Even simple things like getting up from a chair, climbing stairs, or walking the dog made me feel sluggish. My knees were stiff, and by the end of the day, my ankles were swollen. I just thought, guess I'm getting old. But then I discovered something important, and it completely changed the way I think about my body. Turns out, joint pain and swelling aren't just about aging. A big part of the problem comes from a lack of collagen, the essential protein that keeps your joints moving smoothly, your skin elastic, and your body flexible. Here's something I had no idea about. After age 65, your body produces less than half the collagen it actually needs. And this shortage shows up in every step you take, every dull ache you feel. What's surprising? Some simple, easy-to-find foods can actually help your body rebuild collagen naturally and effectively. Recent research shows certain collagen-rich foods don't just slow joint degeneration. They can reduce inflammation, improve mobility, and even cut swelling in your legs by nearly 50% in just 8 weeks. And I gave it a shot. I didn't take any medication. I just changed a few things in my daily meals. The result? I could stand up more easily, my ankles no longer ballooned in the evenings, and the heavy feeling in my legs was almost gone. Today, I want to share with you those 8 foods, ranked from helpful to game-changing. Trust me, the one food. Almost no one over 60 eats it, yet it contains more natural collagen than any other food on Earth. But before we dive in, I have one question. How old are you? Drop your number in the comments below. I'm reading every single one because I believe everyone deserves to feel comfortable in their own body. Now let's get started with Food 8, a common kitchen ingredient that naturally boosts collagen production from the inside out, without a single pill. 8 egg yolks, the unsung hero for cartilage and joints. Eggs are always on the list of high-protein foods, but most people, my past self included, only pay attention to the whites. The yolks get ignored because of cholesterol concerns, but the truth is, it's the yolk that actually helps my joints feel better. The yolk contains things my body, especially after 60, desperately needs to produce its own collagen. Biotin supports the growth of connective tissue. Vitamin D boosts calcium absorption and reduces osteoarthritis inflammation. Sulfur, a foundational element for making collagen. Without enough sulfur, amino acid chains can't bond to form collagen, leading to weak tissues, loose ligaments, and joint swelling. I found a 2020 university study in Europe. Older adults who ate whole eggs, whites plus yolks, 5 times a week for 10 weeks experienced a 22% reduction in joint pain, especially in the knees and lower back. Blood tests also showed increased collagen production activity and a significant drop in CRP, a marker of inflammation in the body. What's remarkable? The effect was more noticeable in people over 60, who are often most collagen deficient. The improvement didn't come from expensive supplements, but from a common everyday food. How to eat eggs for max benefit: soft-boiled, poached, or quickly pan-fried in olive oil. Avoid overcooking, dry scramble, crispy fry. High heat destroys sulfur compounds. Real-world advice: if you've cut out yolks because of cholesterol fears, you're not alone. But many recent studies show clearly. For healthy older adults, eating 1-2 whole eggs a day does not raise bad cholesterol and can even increase HDL, the good cholesterol that protects the heart. Egg yolks aren't some trendy superfood. But for me, they're the reason I can get up every morning without feeling that stiff, grinding pain in my knees like before. 7. Pumpkin seeds. Tiny minerals, big impact. Pumpkin seeds used to be a snack I didn't give much thought to. But then I discovered they're one of the most mineral-rich, joint-supporting foods I've ever tried. They don't contain collagen, but here's the amazing part. They contain the raw materials my body needs to make its own collagen. Specifically, zinc, essential for activating collagen-producing enzymes. Magnesium keeps inflammation low and helps muscles and ligaments work efficiently. Manganese boosts the elasticity of connective tissue, keeping joints from stiffening. When I read a study published in Biological Trace Element Research, I was honestly surprised. Older adults who ate 1/4 cup of pumpkin seeds a day for 8 weeks showed 27% increase in joint flexibility, 19% reduction in swelling in the lower legs and feet, reduced oxidative stress in their blood, which means less inflammation at the cellular level. I gave it a try, and after a few weeks, I noticed my ankles didn't feel tight after walking anymore. I could even stand longer while cooking. How to get the most from them? Choose raw or dry roasted pumpkin seeds, no oil, no salt. Soak overnight with a pinch of sea salt to remove phytic acid, which blocks mineral absorption. You can re-roast them for crunch or grind and mix into oatmeal, smoothies, salads. You don't need much, just a small handful daily is enough to supply the zinc and magnesium that people over 60 are often missing. Real-world advice. If you often feel mild joint pain, numb legs after sitting, or loose joints, try adding pumpkin seeds to your breakfast or afternoon snack. You won't notice a change overnight, but after 2-3 weeks, you might stand up easier without the usual stiffness. Egg yolks help restart your body's collagen factory. Pumpkin seeds provide the essential raw materials to rebuild your joint foundation. These two foods are cheap, easy to find, easy to eat, but their impact builds up over time, especially for those over 60. 6. Canned salmon with bones, the surprising fix for failing knees. If you're like me, you've probably eaten salmon because it's heart-healthy or rich in omega-3s. But what I didn't know, and wish I'd known sooner, is that the real treasure lies in the soft bones inside canned salmon. Not kidding. I used to toss them out because they looked weird. Turns out, those little bones are packed with natural collagen, calcium, phosphorus, and gelatin, all key building blocks for cartilage repair and joint strength. One study I found, Nutrients, 2020, reported that older adults who ate canned salmon with bones 3 times a week saw a 32% increase in knee flexibility, a 21% drop in blood inflammation markers, CRP, in just 10 weeks. No drugs, no supplements. The reason is simple. Collagen peptides from the bones plus omega-3s from the fish meat equals the perfect combo to reduce swelling, help cells produce new collagen, improve mobility. How to eat it right. Choose wild-caught canned salmon that clearly says with bones or with skin and bones on the label. The bones are already softened through the canning process. Just mash them gently with a fork and mix them into the fish. Easy ways to eat it. Mix with avocado spread and smear on toast. Add to salads with beans, greens, or sweet potatoes. Mix with hot rice plus olive oil plus fresh herbs like an American-style rice bowl. Note, don't just eat the meat. The real benefits, 80%, are in the bones and skin. You need the full combo of meat plus bones to get the collagen effect. I started eating this 2-3 times a week, and after just 1 month, my legs felt lighter. I didn't even need to push off the chair with my hands to stand up anymore. And the best part, cheap, convenient, easy to store. No expensive pills, just pop open a can. 5. Chicken skin, from throwaway to my secret weapon against joint pain. I used to think chicken skin was something to toss. Too fatty, unhealthy, doctors said to avoid it. That was before I learned this very skin contains the most important type of collagen for aging joints, type I collagen. This type of collagen is the main component of ligaments, cushioning cartilage, joint capsules. In other words, it's the raw material your knees, hips, and ankles need to move smoothly. I came across a clinical study in the International Journal of Medical Sciences. Adults over 55 who consumed poultry collagen daily, i.e., chicken skin and cooked chicken bones, experienced a 40% increase in joint comfort, a 33% reduction in joint stiffness in just 12 weeks, and crucially, the results didn't come from supplements or powdered collagen, but from real, easy-to-find food. How to eat it for maximum benefit without triggering inflammation. Don't deep fry. Seriously. I love crispy chicken skin too, but frying destroys collagen and creates harmful free radicals. Use gentler cooking methods like slow roasting, simmering, or boiling in broth. Best parts rich in collagen. Chicken thighs with skin, wings, necks. How I use chicken skin. Dice cooked skin and mix into savory oatmeal. Sounds weird, tastes great. Add to soup stews with root veggies. Serve with hot rice, steamed greens, and ginger sauce. The chewy texture takes some getting used to, but waking up without that grinding feeling in my knees. Totally worth it. Real-world advice. If you're slowing down by the end of the day, feel heavy-legged, or keep reaching for knee ointments, rethink the chicken skin you've been throwing away. It might be the reason you're walking more freely by next week. My shortest answer: gelatin. It's not a medicine. It's not a pill. It's collagen that's already been cooked, easy to absorb and fast-acting. If you've ever simmered bones and noticed the broth turning into jelly when cooled, that's it. That's natural gelatin. It nourishes your joints, ligaments, and connective tissues without having to search far and wide. Why should older adults use gelatin? Easy to absorb, especially when your digestion has slowed with age. Fast relief from pain and inflammation, for mild to moderate joint discomfort. Helps regenerate cartilage, something very few foods can actually do. A 2018 study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition caught my attention. Older adults who took gelatin daily showed 37% improvement in joint flexibility, 27% reduction in inflammation around knees and ankles. MRI scans even showed thickening of knee cartilage, something that usually doesn't happen without surgery. The kicker: results started showing up in less than 2 weeks with consistent use. No waiting 3 months. No popping 5 pills a day. How I take gelatin daily. I choose unflavored, unsweetened, grass-fed beef gelatin. I mix 1-2 tablespoons into hot tea or bone broth. Vegetable soup at lunch. Morning smoothies makes them thicker and creamier. You can also make collagen gummies using fruit juice and gelatin. Use it to thicken sauces or broths without cornstarch. The key is consistency. Once a day, every day, just like brushing your teeth. My results: after 3 weeks of daily gelatin, I stopped feeling that morning knee fatigue, and best of all, I no longer needed to rub warming balm into my ankles every night. It's a small change, but a huge breakthrough for someone who once thought, "Guess I'll have to live with the pain." 3 whole sardines with skin and bones. A cheap food that's worth its weight in gold for joints and bones. Confession: I used to hate sardines. Strong smell, full of bones, and visually unappealing. But when I started focusing on joint health, I learned something. Each sardine is a little natural collagen capsule. Fish skin contains elastin and omega-3s, great for reducing inflammation and repairing tissue. Soft bones are packed with type I collagen, calcium, and phosphorus, essential for cartilage and bone structure. Small fish, big benefits. A 2022 study published in Nutrients confirmed. Adults over 65 who ate whole sardines with skin and bones 3 times a week for 8 weeks experienced 29% reduction in joint pain scores, 25% reduction in swelling around knees and ankles, noticeable increase in collagen production based on blood tests. These results were especially impressive because the participants weren't using any medications. Sardines, cheap, shelf-stable, and easy to use, have become a secret weapon for older adults with chronic joint pain. How to make them tasty and easy to get used to. Choose canned sardines in water or olive oil. Avoid tomato sauce or soybean oil. Eat the whole fish, don't discard the bones or skin. Some of my go-to combos: sardines plus avocado on toast. Sardines mixed with hot rice plus cilantro plus a few drops of lime juice. Sardines blended with Greek yogurt plus mustard as a dip for crackers. If you've skipped sardines before because of the smell or how they look, I get it. But once I realized they were whole-body collagen, my mindset shifted. And after a few weeks, I felt something I never thought would return: being able to walk for 30 minutes straight without needing a break. 2. Bone broth, a warm drink for cold, dry, achy joints. I used to think bone broth was just a comforting soup for people with the flu, but at 65 I've discovered something else. Bone broth doesn't just soothe the soul, it's liquid collagen therapy that slowly nurtures your joints back to health. When simmered long enough, bones release type I and III collagen, gelatin, glycine, proline, calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium, all essential nutrients that help rebuild connective tissue and restore joint function. For me, 1 cup a day is how I oil my creaky knees, swollen ankles, and stiff hips. Backed by research. In 2021, a group of people over 60 participated in a study published in Clinical Interventions in Aging. They drank 1 cup of bone broth daily for 12 weeks. The results: 44% reduction in joint swelling, 38% improvement in mobility and noticeable pain relief. Ultrasound imaging showed thickening of knee cartilage, something rarely seen without surgery. Why is bone broth more effective than collagen powder? Collagen powder is often stripped of the minerals that help absorption. Bone broth preserves the full biological matrix: collagen, minerals, and amino acids, making it more absorbable and bioavailable. How to cook it right. Use bones rich in connective tissue. Chicken backs, turkey necks, beef joints, pork trotters. Simmer for 12-24 hours with onions, garlic, apple cider vinegar to extract minerals from the bones, herbs or ginger to taste. No time to cook. Buy refrigerated or frozen bone broth. Just make sure it's free from additives and preservatives. Flexible ways to use it. Sip it like tea in the morning. I add a pinch of pink salt and ginger. Use it as a base for soups, porridges, or stews. Cook rice with it, tastes great and adds nutrition. For me, every cup of bone broth is like a maintenance contract for my knees and ligaments. It helps me sleep through the night without stabbing foot pain, climb stairs without holding the railing, and most importantly, stand at the stove longer without numb feet. 1. Beef tendon. Not fancy, not pretty, but the one collagen powerhouse. Beef tendon doesn't show up on fancy restaurant menus, but for me, it's the strongest natural medicine to regain joint mobility after 60. Tendon is nearly 100% type I collagen, the primary building block of skin, ligaments, cartilage that cushions the joints. When cooked properly, tendon releases a rich form of gelatin and collagen peptides that deeply penetrate deteriorating connective tissues. Breakthrough study, 2022, Journal of Functional Foods. People over 60 who ate beef tendon stew 3 times a week showed, after just 4 weeks, 63% increase in joint fluid density, easing the dry creakiness, 41% reduction in knee stiffness, significant improvement in walking balance. MRI scans confirmed regeneration of cushioning tissue around major joints, all in just 30 days, not years. How to cook tendon for max benefit. Simmer tendon slowly for 8-12 hours until soft and jelly-like. I usually add ginger, garlic, rice vinegar. Equals boosts flavor and enhances absorption. How to eat it without getting tired of it. Slice it up and mix into porridge or pho. Add to soups or vegetable stews. Cook Asian style, pair with boiled greens, broth, or oil-free noodles. Note: if you're new to it, start with small portions and pair with soft, easy-to-eat foods. What changed for me after 1 month? My joints stopped creaking when standing up. Stairs became easier to climb. That loose, unstable feeling in my knees gone. Beef tendon isn't trendy or marketed like collagen powders, but it's the most potent natural delivery system of pure collagen nature ever created. And for older adults, it might just be a second chance for a body that once thought, it's too late. So now you've got a list of 8 foods that can truly help regenerate your joints, restore strength to your legs, and eliminate swelling and pain from the inside out. No medication, no expensive supplements, No chasing trends. Just real food, familiar, simple, but scientifically proven to be rich in collagen, full of nutrients that support connective tissues, and capable of significantly improving stiffness, pain, and inflammation when eaten the right way and consistently. Your body has always been quietly trying to heal itself. No matter your age, it's never stopped trying. But to do that, it needs the right building blocks. A cup of bone broth every morning, a serving of slow-cooked beef tendon each week, a whole egg, yolk and all, a handful of pumpkin seeds in your morning oats. Small, steady changes that don't cost much, but these are the foundation stones your body needs to rebuild its strength. Among the 8 foods above, which one will you start with this week? Eggs or sardines? Gelatin or chicken skin? Drop a comment not just to share with me, but to inspire others who are reading along. I and the entire community are reading every comment, every story. This isn't just information. This is a journey of taking charge, of healing, of hope. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Every day, I'll keep sharing more practical tips and knowledge, designed specifically for the health of older adults, things that are proven, immediately useful, and that actually get results. Your legs and the joints that have carried you through your entire life deserve a second chance. Not to run faster, but to walk steadier, without a cane, without needing to hold onto the wall. If you have any questions or simply want to share your own healing journey, I'm always here to listen. Thank you for spending time with me. We'll meet again, because this health journey doesn't end here.